In 1977, John Simon wrote a review on Star Wars and he didn't like it at all, and I'm assuming he wrote it because he has no lips. I don't read science fiction, of which this may, for all I know, be a prime example. Some light years ago, I did read Flash Gordon. So far, you're not helping your case. Maybe don't start your review with your lack of qualifications, and then your qualifications. Listen, I don't know much about cars, but let me try and fix this thing, because I've bought a car once. We are treated to a galactic civil war, assorted heroes and villains, a princely maiden in distress, a splendid old man surviving from an extinct order of knights who possessed a mysterious power called the Force, and it is all as exciting as last year's weather reports. Well, this review came out in 1977, and in 1976 there was a major flood in the United States that killed 145 people, so that's kind of exciting. Rather more can be said for the two robots that steal the show. One humanoid, British accented, the other a kind of mobile electronic trash can, all nervous beeps and hearty bloops, waddling along in vintage Mickey Rooney style. What you don't know is that Mickey Rooney was actually inside of R2-D2 at the time. The film doesn't even provide the good-looking hero and heroine of the old Flash Gordon strip. Translation: they weren't hot enough. It has nowhere near the romantic invention of, say, Edgar Rice Burroughs' Martian novels, featuring that dashing Virginia gentleman John Carter and the lovely shocking pink princess Deja Thori. Translation: these people were hotter. Here it is, all trite characters and paltry verbiage, handled adequately by Harrison Ford as a blockade-running starship pilot, uninspiredly by Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, and wretchedly by Carrie Fisher, who is not even appealing as Princess Leia Organa, an organic lay. When I'm looking for a woman, I care about my health, so I always look for an organic lay, something non-GMO, a free-range woman, if you will. The one exception is Alec Guinness as the grand old man, Ben Kenobi. Kenobi probably from cannabis, i.e. hashish, for reasons you can guess. That's what you got from that? So it's Obi-Wan weed. Actually, all of the characters from Star Wars were based somewhat on drugs. Just look at R2-DMT, or Quaalude Skywalker, or you know, Meth Vader. Still, Star Wars will do very nicely for those lucky enough to be children. They're lucky to be a child. It's not like we popped out as adults, and if we did, you better take care of your mother on Mother's Day. You know how most people say Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie? Well, this guy hated it. If the downturn in film business is indeed being caused by the current recession, as many suspect, then audiences are getting by with less somewhere just to go out and enjoy The Empire Strikes Back. Look, if the economy's bad and all I have to do to finally get out of the house and see a movie is not buy a box of Fruit Loops and instead buy a bag of circular sugar tubes, I'm buying the sugar tubes. In the hardest of times, people can eat less, stay at home, and wear their clothes longer, but they can't survive without a dream. It feels like that's the trailer for anything. Actually, it sounds like the trailer for a Disney movie. And technically Star Wars is Disney now, so there you go. Critics who labeled this film better than Star Wars must have been watching the audience instead of the performance. And they are also bats, because they have night vision and can see an audience in the dark. This is surely the most ludicrous science fiction scene since the days of live television in the 1950s. Really? The most ludicrous science fiction since the 50s, huh? I give you 1968's Barbarella.
What is this thing?
Yep. Star Wars was more ludicrous. Now that I can see as well as hear Kenobi, the question of what actually happened on the Death Star when Ben miraculously dematerialized out of his clothes is starting to nag. Apparently, he went back and picked up his duds because he's wearing them again. So, Ben Kenobi returns as a Force ghost, and you're like, hey, where'd you get your clothes? Maybe Lucas didn't want to show you Obi-Wan's Kenobi. We'd have to call him Big Ben. The Force itself isn't quite so interesting either. In The Empire Strikes Back, it somewhat disappointingly turns out to be just your basic telekinesis. You know, your basic telekinesis. You know, just like the thing that you do normally. In a conclusion best described as Carrie meets Star Wars, that's how it's best described. You know, that bucket of pig's blood scene in Empire Strikes Back. The script has Darth Vader mentally hurl all the loose furniture at Luke in order to defeat him. Just coffee tables and nightstands and armoires just to be fancy and give it a little class. The duel in Star Wars turned Obi-Wan into a ghost, and now the duel in this one turns Luke into a bastard. Like an actual bastard? Based on what he finds out, no. Lightsaber fights, they'll turn you into a bastard. So if you ask me, Luke's got to be a bastard. Vader's illegitimate son, perhaps as a result of rape? I didn't expect that. That would certainly be in character for Darth and would add a new dimension to the catchphrase, seduced by the dark side of the Force. Yeah, you went there. But seduction isn't rape. We take a look at Vincent Canby's review of Return of the Jedi, and things get a little weird. Where does Yoda do his shopping? Based on where he lives, he buys everything on Amazon. Will Darth Vader sacrifice his only begotten son so that evil might triumph? And speaking of Vader, when he takes off his mask, what is underneath? The face of a white guy with a voice of a black guy. So, Rick Astley. All of the members of the old Star Wars gang are back, doing what they've done before, but this time with a certain evident boredom. Look, I'll give you Harrison Ford, but in his defense, he was frozen in carbonite for a good portion of this movie, so, you know, you'd be bored too. They include Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, the voice of James Earl Jones, and Alec Guinness Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi, who died a picture or two back, but won't get off the screen. He's like the Tupac Shakur of movies, or what Prince is gonna be for the next 100 years. Now I want to see a Prince Force ghost. The movie also introduces a number of new animated creatures. The most attractive of these are some small teddy bear-like creatures called Ewoks, which serve the functions once left to friendly pygmies in old Tarzan movies. Did you just say Ewoks are attractive? You just said they're attractive. Are you a furry? Not that I'm judging, but I am. Because if you're gonna be a furry, pick something better than an Ewok. Return of the Jedi contains a number of scenes that are the space fantasy equivalent to local color scenes in travelogues. Looking for a weekend away? Come to the beautiful moon of Endor. There's cannibals, and they're attractive. We see Ewoks dancing, Jabba the Hutt, who looks like a rubber Buddha. I'm starting to think that you've never seen Buddha. Plus other assorted creatures that are so without visual character that one remembers only isolated features. Teeth, saliva, fur, toes. Toes? Furry with a foot fetish? Furry with a foot fetish. Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, fantastic toes. The film's battle scenes might have been impressive, but become tiresome because it's never certain who is zapping whom with those laser beams and neutron missiles. I just don't know who's zapping whom. Who are you zapping? For the record, there are two moments in Return of the Jedi that evoke legitimate smiles. I'm ready. One is a chase sequence in which the Ewoks whiz around a redwood forest on jet-propelled air sleds, and the other is a single line of appropriately arced dialogue. You're a feisty little one, but you'll soon learn respect. Those are the two good moments. Yeah, you like that line because you were imagining yourself saying it to a little furry Ewok while you're in some weird S&M play and messing with their toes. What's wrong with you, sir? Return of the Jedi contains some battles that are more busy than violent, and one death scene that evokes no emotional response whatsoever. I just couldn't tell who was zapping who, and when the guy died, I couldn't see his toes, so I felt nothing. So some people hate episode 1, some people love episode 1. Robert Wolanski, I think he hates it more than the people who hate it. This, of course, is an exercise in futility. You know, like exercise. Just doesn't work, man. I keep eating 3 pounds of Taco Bell and working out, nothing's happening. The Force is strong with this film. You've seen the Boba Fetted geeks lined up outside theaters. Their freaky, frightening, flashlight-turned, lightsaber-wielding numbers growing every day. Their freaky, frightening, flashlight-turned, lightsaber-wielding numbers growing every day. Good lord! Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, could be 2 hours of static, and it nearly is. Only very lush static. And still, they'd proclaim it an epic triumph. What's lush static? It's It's like when I take my clothes out of the dryer and all of a sudden there's like an Armani suit attached to my shitty t-shirt. Where did this suit come from? Thank you, George. Never in the history of filmdom has there been a monster so immune to criticism. It may not sink Titanic, no Leo for the ladies in the house, but it might give Jim Cameron worry enough to jump ship. King of the world? How about King of the galaxy far, far away? I want you to draw me like one of your Alderaan girls. And the Cantina band kept playing. Never let go, Han. I'll never let go. I know. It's Star Wars Special Edition, or Star Wars The Dance Remix, or Star Wars Dance Dance Revolution. This ain't no movie. It's a very long, very tedious infomercial for Phantom Menace action figures. On sale now at Target or Toys R Us near you, or other stores. I don't know why you named those two. Were you paid? And yes, we get it. Star Wars sells toys. And who the hell buys collectibles? Anakin Skywalker marries Naboo's Queen Amidala, provides the sperm for twins, Luke and Leia, using the Force. Yeah, I'm here to provide sperm. Then hooks up with Senator Palpatine. Darth Sidious hooks up. Is he providing sperm to him as well? And becomes James Earl Jones, or something like that. Oh, sorry. Did I give something away? To James Earl Jones? I'm sorry, did I apologize for spoiling the movie? Right after I spoiled the movie? Anakin Skywalker as the Chosen One, born of immaculate conception to a woman named Shmi, played by, pardon, but Darth Vader is Jesus Christ? Jesus Christ. And where is Shmi from anyway? Lithuania? Oh, little town of Lithuania. Of course Darth Vader's Jesus Christ. Remember that passage in the Bible when Jesus force chokes a leper to death? McGregor's rat's tail haircut does most of his acting for him. Control your hate, young Padawan. Who cuts the Jedi's hair? Former NHL players? Vanilla Ice? Yes. And Portman apparently took acting lessons from Carrie Fisher, and maybe that's just the Naboo accent. Masterpiece Theater by way of Dawson's Creek. I don't know why that sounded sexual, but it did. Worst of all, the patois damaged Jar Jar. Half the time you expect him to offer Qui-Gon a red stripe. The other half, you wonder if he's got a watermelon in his pocket or if he's just happy to see Obi-Wan. What the hell are you talking about? I don't even know what to say about that. Having a watermelon in your pocket's quite impressive. Also, are you implying that Jar Jar Binks has a watermelon-shaped penis? Is that what's going on with this? Cause that's probably a disease. Me's hurt when I pee. The characters and planets' names all sound like something you'd order at a Chinese restaurant. We'll all reconvene at Beef and Broccoli. I'll have the Gungan and Qui-Gon on a bed of Amidala. Hold the Coruscant with an ice-cold Watto to wash it all down. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, that's the first thing you've said that I didn't hate. Luckily, you can get all that at the food court at the Darth Mall. Stephen Hunter's review of Attack of the Clones is weirdly sexual, and he talks a lot about Justin Timberlake. It's all gonna make sense soon. No, it's not. The emotional climax of Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones is fabulous. Soaring and majestic, it reaches deep inside you to stroke— whoa. Emotional climax that reaches deep inside you. Well, to stroke chords of fond memory, to reaffirm the pleasure and healing power of narrative, to liberate the imagination. Is this a review for Star Wars, or is this an ad for your tantric company? It's like you're describing warming lube. Unfortunately, it comes in the first 2 seconds. Oh my god. You mean like an obedient dog? Oh, you meant sex. Well, you just described all one of my relationships. I love how the cleanup takes longer than the actual sex. After that, the movie doesn't go downhill or uphill. It doesn't go anywhere. It flatlines. Because if it went downhill, it would have only lasted 1 second. Memo to George Lucas: hire an editor, bud. You're a great man. So what? You still need an editor. Everybody needs an editor. And nobody needed an editor more than the writer-director of this film. And nobody needs another word for editor more than you. Tell you what, if George Lucas needs an editor, you need a thesaurus. Not even the action sequences truly stir. Too often, they simply resemble Jetsons shtick. like, or whatever that noise is, that's what you're talking about? It's Obi-Wan, Apprentice Skywalker, annoying asshole Jar Jar. Senator Amidala, who was Queen Amidala in the last one, but never mind. Hey, people change, man. People change. You weren't always an amazing movie critic. Journeys to the Republic's capital city planet, Coruscant, to lead opposition in the Senate to some plan to create a clone army to dissuade the growing threats of the separatists from I'm lost in space already. That was not confusing at all. I was more confused when you said editor 1,000 times. The President Palpatine assigns 2 Jedi to protect her, the Master Obi-Wan and his young mentee, Anakin Skywalker, played by NSYNC star Justin Timberlake. No, played by Hayden Christensen, who looks like an NSYNC kid but doesn't have as much talent. Maybe, but I would say he looks a little bit more like the older brother in Hanson. The NSYNC kid is even worse. The NSYNC kid. He seems to have wandered in from a Pepsi commercial. No, that would have been Justin Timberlake. Did you actually think it was Justin Timberlake? Now I'm starting to think it's Justin Timberlake. Was that Justin Timberlake? Is Justin Timberlake in Star Wars? Now I have to see this movie again. Clearly your critique is working. It is true that eventually episode 2 springs to some kind of life when the clones actually attack, as the title promises. But as to the technical difference between a clone and a droid, that I can't tell you because then I'd have to kill you. Starting to think that you can't tell us because you don't know, because as obvious as it was, you're dumb. Lucas rather haphazardly just decides to end the movie on a Lollapalooza. Is that when NSYNC and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Soul Asylum all showed up? And I don't know. Probably not, because NSYNC would never play Lollapalooza. The first line of Anthony Lane's review is so dumb that you couldn't believe it could get dumber, and it does. It gets dumber. Sith. What kind of word is that? Sith. Is that the actual first Latin? That's the first thing. This is gonna be good. It's a made-up word in a fantasy sci-fi movie. What the hell do you want? It sounds to me like the noise that emerges when you block one nostril and blow through the other. But to George Lucas, it is a name that trumpets evil. You can literally do that with any made-up word in this movie. A Jedi sounds like a trailer you attach to the back of a pickup so you can carry more deer carcasses. A Vader's the guard you put on the front of the pickup so that you don't hit things. A Jar Jar is an alert in your pickup that tells you your door is not fully closed. Midichlorians are something that you pour into your gas tank to increase its octane level. Padme is actually the real word used for those beaded seat covers. Why did all those become pickup truck references? Tolkien, earthed in Old English, had a head start that led him straight to the flinty perfection of Mordor and Orc. Here, by contrast, are some Lucas inventions. Palpatine, Sidious, Mace Windu. Isn't that something you spray on colicky babies? You spray it on colicky babies? Why'd you come up with that? Mace Windu sounds more like an off-brand Windex. Or something you bring on a Tinder date in case it gets a little rapey. What can you say about a civilization where people zip from one solar system to the next as if they were changing their socks? But where, wow, oh, I gotta change my socks. Where the f am I? But where a woman fails to register for an ultrasound and thus to realize that she is carrying twins until she is about to give birth. I feel like she didn't have time. When was she gonna do that? While her boyfriend was turning into like an evil maniac? Was it during all that? When she was like being hidden, and when? It's like all the most horrible things in the world are going on and she's like, hold on, I gotta pee on this stick. Mind you, how Padme got pregnant is anybody's guess. No, it's not. There's no guessing. We've all had the talk. Although I'm prepared to wager that it involved Anakin nipping into a broom closet with a warm glass jar and a copy of Ewok Babes. You think he jerked off to Ewoks and put it into a jar? And she inseminated herself? That's canon. According to Disney. After all, the Lucasian universe is drained of all reference to bodily functions. Nobody ingests or excretes. Nobody ingests or excretes. Language remains unblue, although many of them are green. Smoking and cursing are out of bounds, as is drunkenness, although personally I wouldn't go near the place without a hip flask. First of all, there are bars and Jedi aren't supposed to drink, so that's obviously explained. But I will give you this, at some point someone probably should have called Anakin a dick. What Lucas has devised over 6 movies is a terrible Puritan dream. Judging from the whoops and crowings that greeted the opening credits, this is the only dream we are good for. We get the films we deserve. So you're making it sound like it's a punishment. It's like every time you see a movie, the director is just standing off to the side of the screen, just holding a belt like this, just ready. Some people are into that. The general opinion of Revenge of the Sith seems to be that it marks a distinct improvement on the last 2 episodes, The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. True, but only in the same way that dying from natural causes is preferable to crucifixion. You know, technically being mauled by a bear would be a natural cause. So much here is guaranteed to cause either offense or pain, rising to the continual horror of Ewan McGregor's accent. Another happy landing, or, to be precise, another happy landing? From now on, everyone should just write in accents, because that's the funniest thing I ever read. I still fail to understand why I should have been expected to waste 25 years of my life following the progress of a beeping trash can and a gay gold-plated Jeeves. Look, a beeping trash can is not that weird, but if you saw a gay gold-plated butler, you'd follow it. Anakin keeps having problems with his dark side. Ooh. He needs to eat more fiber and fresh fruit, in the way that you or I might suffer from tennis elbow. No, because he's actually using the Force and none of us are playing tennis. Yoda, whose reptilian smugness we have been encouraged to mistake for wisdom, has the answer. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose, he says. Hold on, Kermit, run that past me one more time. I think Kermit got colic. Also, while we're here, what's with the screwy syntax? Deepest mind in the galaxy, apparently, and you still express yourself like a day tripper with a dog-eared phrase book. I hope right you are. Break me a fucking give. Oh, man. Yeah, speak proper English, alien. Oh, I'm sorry. Proper English speak. You are not gonna believe Prairie Miller's review of Star Wars The Force Awakens. She literally goes off on this rant that maybe it's about the movie? First, the disclaimer that no, I am not now, nor have I ever been, a Star Wars junkie. You guys feel the Force? Do you feel it? You feel the Force? Do you feel it in your face? But on the other hand, an exceedingly more impartial position, viewing a film that should stand on its own merits and not propped up by a built-in fan base. I'm not really a fan of Star Wars, which makes me unbiased when reviewing a Star Wars movie. That's like turning to the person who took your virginity and being like, you know, you weren't that good. Or for that matter, clearly intimidated critic colleagues who may say one thing publicly, but whisper something quite different off camera. Ooh. Naughty. You don't hear what he says to me in private, okay? He tells me he loves me and that I'm the most beautiful girl in the world. You just don't know him like I do. But he just smacked you upside the head and took your drink. You don't know him! Though, which statutes any neutrality in the discomforting position of, say, an atheist taking to the podium at a church service. Yeah, that's what you sound like right now. In the beginning, absolutely no one created the heavens and the earth. But I'm not biased. Brandishing both a wand and a wink at audiences and splitting itself in catch-all mode somewhere between colossal and cartoonish. The latest, future ironically as past, preaching to the choir Star Wars saga continues with this 7th entry. Someone had a word quota. I'm so close to getting paid. How can I make this one line an entire paragraph? And by the way, using a phrase like a wand and a wink is only a couple steps away from having to go to every single one of your neighbors and telling them you're a sex offender. Newcomers, John Boyega as Black Intergalactic Superhero Combat Soldier turned whistleblower Finn. Wow. Anytime he does an interview, he has to describe himself as that, and it's so long that the interview's like immediately over. So who do you play in the movie? Well, I play a Black Intergalactic Superhero Combat Soldier turned whistleblower named Finn. That's all the time we have. We appreciate you coming out, John Boyega. And Daisy Ridley's fierce female insurgent Rey. That's it? The main character of the movie doesn't get a long introduction. All right. With an obedient robotic boy toy following behind. Boy toy? Have you met my boy toy, BB-8? A robotic boy toy, like the little kid from AI? The real main attraction as The Force Awakens, oh, you are too much, is blowing things up, and in more ways than one, whether the interminable explosions or off-screen blown out of proportion franchise collectibles to come. Tell everyone you're not a Star Wars fan, bitch at everybody about toys. So what inevitably ensues is less of a focus on all the paradoxical cartoonish carnage and mayhem in progress on screen than interest in what's up with the popcorn and Kool-Aid ingesting swooning audiences in the theaters. I don't even care what you just said. Where are you seeing a movie that has Kool-Aid? And the strange notion of this breathlessly anticipated theatrical event in a nation traumatized by endless wars in the real world. No, you're not. No. In a country that even before its founding has been at war for 214 out of the 235 years of existence, and with most in the audience never knowing a time in their own lives without US wars, assaults and invasions around the planet. Hey, remember when you were reviewing Star Wars The Force Awakens? I'd stand on my soapbox, but I'm not important, and who buys soap in boxes? You know, since the invention of the automobile in America, a lot of the United States has revolved around cars, and most of us can't even think of a time when we didn't have cars. So when I saw Pixar's Cars, I just assumed that that was why it was being made, and I was a little offended. So why the massive flocking to theaters to pay for more war and massacre, military slaughter, fear and terror as spectacle, and dare I say, entertainment? Because if you took wars out of Star Wars, you would just have Star. And they already made that movie. It was called Glitter. Perhaps in bizarre, safe space psychological mode, akin to controlled demolition of buildings, as opposed to, say, the helplessly unanticipated public trauma of 9/11. Nope. No. And war itself, co-starring state-of-the-art weaponry as the biggest moneymaker for this country, enriching both the military-industrial complex and Hollywood. We're here in Los Angeles, Hollywood, talking to John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, the stars of the new Star Wars film, The Force Awakens. And who's coming up next? Oh, it's the American government, along with the Pentagon's lucrative sideline as the major props department in movies, with inevitable final cut privilege over how they get portrayed. Yes, because in the end credits, it was like, props department, the Pentagon. Executive produced by the White House and catered by the Department of Internal Affairs. Okay, my 2 cents. There it is. That was way more than 2 cents. That was at least $7.50 in pennies dumped on my head from the top of a building. Mick LaSalle was so disappointed with Rogue One that he wished he was watching the prequels. The prequels! With Rogue One, a Star Wars story, it's officially time to start missing George Lucas. Because the entire thing wasn't green screen and awful. He's like swimming in money. He doesn't miss you. You might have been annoyed or repulsed by, say, Jar Jar Binks, but you could still recognize the character as an honest expression of a specific person's imagination. Jar Jar was not a corporate product. No, he was just an annoying racist stereotype used to sell toys. But Rogue One not only is a corporate product, it feels like it. The difference is as obvious as the difference between a live dog and a stuffed dog. Well, if the prequels were a live dog and Rogue One was a stuffed dog, at least the stuffed dog didn't take a on my carpet. We see a little girl running across a barren plain. She's shot from below, and something in the sight and the angle and the music, which sounds like John Williams but not as good, announces that this is a Star Wars movie. And for a while, that's enough. I don't know if there's a composer out there who thinks they're as good as John Williams. It's like being a swimmer and being like, I'm as good as Michael Phelps. No, you're not. You might even say it's like comparing a live dog to a stuffed dog. The little girl grows into Felicity Jones as Jyn Erso, and Jones makes a good Star Wars heroine. She's young, stern, and capable, and she talks with an English accent, because a lot of them talked that way back then. Back then in the future, a long, long far ago. At first, I thought this was another Death Star, but no. You did? At first, I didn't have the internet. To know that this was the Death Star is to accidentally go on a computer once, and your phone's a computer. You know that a Star Wars movie is in trouble when you start thinking, hey, maybe they should throw in the towel. Maybe the Empire won't be so bad. Maybe it would be better than a war that has gone on for decades. Now I'm concerned for who you were rooting for while you were watching Schindler's List. The last hour of Rogue One, like the last hour of Godzilla, is nothing but a battle scene. You know, we weren't gonna end Rogue One with some sort of action battle scene, but then we were like, hey, this is a sci-fi movie that involves fighting and war. In fact, wars is in the title. But it can't be an exciting battle scene featuring something like the destruction of the Death Star. Of course it doesn't end with destroying the Death Star. They already did that twice. Most of the last half of Rogue One involves a heroic effort to download and transmit a large computer file. Yes, really. And you can't complain about the plot being about downloading and transmitting a large computer file when 1, you already knew the plot, and 2, even if you didn't, you knew it was before A New Hope and you already knew the plot. Jones will probably become wealthy from this, which is the only happy thought to take from the experience. Do you have some kind of personal investment with whether or not Felicity Jones is rich? You looking for a sugar mama? I don't think she's your type, because she's, you know, attractive and rich, and you're a movie critic. But Rogue One is strictly for completists, for the type of Star Wars fans who hated Phantom Menace and yet watched it more than twice. People do lots of things they hate more than twice. Exercise, taxes, watching fake social experiment pranks on YouTube.